Today we're going to be speaking about love, about the role of love, not only in one-on-one relationships, but the role of love for everything we do. My guest today is Paul Zolman, who is the author of The Role of Love, System and Book. And he just showed me a very interesting dice. I'm very curious to know what the role of the dice is and of the journal pack and everything and how this transforms our lives. Hi, Paul. Welcome.
Hi, Zorina. Nice to meet you and glad to be with you today.
Likewise. Paul, tell us a bit about you. You just said you're a German descendant from 280 years ago. That's not very concrete.
No,
Tell us
well,
a bit
no,
about your life.
it's in the 1754, my Zolman immigrant ancestor migrated from Germany and settled in, it was an indentured servant actually, and settled in the Pennsylvania area of America and worked off that passage for about 7 years. After 7 years, he was done being that indentured servant, actually purchased some land and was able to uh, move down to Maryland with that land. And I've been back to Maryland where he actually built a barn. It's very interesting that in the top of the barn, he put a Z for Zolman, put a Z up in the top of the barn, and it looks like Zorro was the person that was riding through the countryside and put the Z in there. So it was very, very interesting to see that. That barn is still standing today. So
Wow,
that's
280 years.
280 years. That's right.
That's fascinating.
No.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But my family actually was more of an angry family when I was growing up. My father was a truck driver. He's gone during the week and came home on the weekends. I'm number 10 of 11 children.
Wow.
And I have a smaller family. I only have 8 children myself. So, but my children only have 3. I don't get that, Zorina. I want more grandchildren. That's I think that's why we have children, is to get to the grandchildren, right? And so anyway, as I'm growing up, when my father comes home on the weekend, he always dates my mother on that Friday. He always dated my mother and took her out. He was not very creative about taking her out. It was always the same place. It was always the Maverick Bar and always over alcohol that they had their date. And so I was never there, but I can imagine they said, we're saying, how was your week? How was your week? And they're just having that exchange. And I can see my mother starting at the oldest child and going down, 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 down until it gets to number 10. As she's going down that way, my father's getting annoyed. He's getting annoyed. He's stacking all these annoyances because of what my brothers are doing. I'm a boy that's between 2 girls. All the rest are boys. So I have an older sister and a younger sister, and then all the rest are boys. And boys are like little puppies, Zorina. They roll around and they wrestle and they're swatting at each other. They're actually having accidents and possibly breaking an arm or something. So I can understand why my father's getting annoyed. But now when it gets down to number 10, he's ready to flash. He's ready to have that anger, just the straw that breaks that camel's back. That's the point that he's at. I felt like I was targeted in that way, that as number 10, he was always annoyed by the time he got to number 10. And so I felt the wrath there. I got the belt or I got severe spanking mostly. But I doubt it was every weekend, but it seemed like it was almost every weekend. So I really tried to obey the rules, tried to do a lot of things. And when I was 17 years old, I took a career test, and the career test said I would be a great internal revenue agent, which is the tax collector type of agent in America. And I didn't want to be that person because they're very strict about the rules. Everybody hates those type of people, the tax collector, but it was somebody that's strict with the rules. So instead, I joined an accounting firm and went through accounting, graduated college with an accounting degree. Kind of the same thing, but not really. But it's just trying to keep within those rules and within the boundaries. But at age 35, I found myself still having a lot of residual anger from that upbringing. And it would be the same thing. I realized that it was more of a generational thing. that I was stacking these annoyances on top of one another until I had that flash. I saw my brother had that same thing, and it was just something that was passed down from the family. Came to the point about 15 years ago, though, that I was, had gone through a divorce and was single, found a woman that I was interested in, was serious about, and I took her for big brother approval. When you're number 10 of 11 children, you have to have big brother approval. So I was taking this woman to his house, and first thing that happened when we went in is my sister-in-law pulls her aside and says, the only emotion that the Zolman family had growing up was anger. At first I denied it, said, then it made me mad. And I thought, that she kind of nailed it with that anger issue. And I resolved from that time forward that I had an opportunity to change that perception of the Zolman family, to change that generational thing. And so I started reading the color code and then settled on 5 love languages. 5 love languages, I liked the principles, but I didn't get didn't understand the application that Dr. Chapman had. Said that, Zorina, if I guess what your love language is, and if I cater to that, we're going to be buddies. But I'm a bad guesser. It wasn't working for me up until that time. And so that wasn't working. And the second thing that Dr. Chapman has is that he said, if you take this survey, you'll find out what your love language is. Well, what do you do with that? Advertise? Hello, Zorina. I'm gifts. What do you have for me today? That was just awkward. It wasn't working for me either. So I had an idea that even as dysfunctional as our family was growing up, that we played games. There was still the smack talk, there was still all the put downs and aggressive competition, but it was pulling our family together. I thought, what if I can make this a game? And I contacted Dr. Chapman and then asked him, are you licensing those little icons that you have for each one of the love languages? And he said, no, we're not doing that. His attorney wrote back and said, they're not doing that. But I have an attorney friend that was a copyright attorney here in my town, went to him and he said this, the theory, like the love language theory, is not copyrightable. Application is. So with that information, he said, well, they're not making it a game, so I'll make my own icons and put it on a dice. So that's what it did. So here I'm holding the dice that has a hand holding an hourglass. That would represent the love language of time. Time looks like the people just want to be with you. You don't have to say any words or anything. Just watch this Hallmark movie with me, or just spend some time with me. That's what time's all about. The next one is looks like a server holding a plate. That would be service. That represents just the icon that would represent someone that likes to have their car washed, or the carpet vacuumed, or the trash taken out, or just likes dinner cooked for them. Those people like to be served. That's their love language. Next one is 2 hands put together, forming a heart with a little conversation fly out. That would be the words from the heart, which would be the loving words that we would say one to another. People like that, like the compliments. They like to hear the words "I love you." They just like the words. That's what lights them up. Next one is a hand holding a gift. That represents gifts. Gifts is, to me, was one of the umbrella type of love languages that really could incorporate all the love languages. And the last one is touch. That would be the high five, the fist bump, the hugs, the kisses, the stroking of the cheek, anything like that. Obviously, it needs to be appropriate. The last side of the die I created that has a hand with a question mark, and that represents surprise me. So, Zorina, there's just 2 instructions. You roll the cube every day. Whatever it lands on, that's the love language you practice giving away all day that day. So in this journey that I've had, I realized that I was crossing borders or really boundaries that were not supposed to be crossed. It's part of the angry culture that you grow up with, is that there are no boundaries. But I realized that, there are boundaries. And I was saying, I was getting annoyed at what that other person was doing. Rarely did I ever get annoyed at myself, but it was just mostly about other people. And as I'm looking at what other people are doing and saying, what's wrong with that person? Trying to elevate myself above that person in knowledge and in trying to manage their life. I realized that's not my business. And when I realized that's not my business and stopped being annoyed, and that I realized that I was focusing on maybe 10 or 20% of that person, of their personality, that was a weakness or was a fault, where I was missing the 80 to 90% of that person that was actually good. So in that paradigm shift, now I'm, instead of saying what's wrong with that person, now I'm saying what's right with that person. What can I love about that person? I became so busy that I forgot to be annoyed. So it was a transformation from that anger and that angry culture now to a more loving culture. So that's who I am. So I'm sorry, that was long.
No, that was really interesting. So the application is for people to train all the love languages so that they transform, or what is the essence
Correct.
behind the
Yeah, that's exactly right. So over a 30-day period, you actually learn by rolling the dice, you actually learn all 5 love languages to give it away. What that does for you is that it gives you the communication skills that you can see it when it comes your way and respond appropriately. Most people are designed to only see what they like. They only see their primary love language. So they end up trying to give their love language away in hopes that it'll come right back. This is different. This, you're giving away all the love languages over a period of 30 days. You're focusing on one a day, but you're giving them all away over a 30-day period. And by doing that, what happens is that you learn them backwards and forwards. You know them all, and you can, it just helps that communication, gives you that peripheral vision to see it when it comes your way. Oh, they're loving on me. It's not my primary love language, but I can respond to that loving gesture that they're making.
So I guess based on the feedback, you're also understanding what love language the other person has.
Correct. So you're watching for people to light up.
Yeah.
When they light up, no longer do you have to say, excuse me, could we pause this relationship so I can have you take this survey so I can know how to love you? That's awkward. You know, we're not doing awkward anymore. Use your observation skills and just watch for their reaction to the love language you're practicing that day. You'll find people lighting up, and those people that light up, you've actually made their day. You've done something very nice, and there's a reward there for you. There's great satisfaction in helping someone have a better day.
So in what scenarios do you use this? In all kinds of relationships, or if you go do business or go to a shop, do you still apply the love language?
That's a great question, Zorina. And yes, it's designed that way because Dr. Chapman would suggest that you do it to a significant other. But I didn't have a significant other at the time. So I was thinking, who the heck am I going to love? And I realized, oh, I have to love everybody. But it was specifically very good circumstance for me to be into a position that I had to love everyone. I was looking for a consistency in my life. I was looking for a new consistency in my life. The consistency of anger wasn't something that I wanted to continue to have in my life. So I needed a replacement behavior. I needed a consistent replacement behavior. And the opposite end of that spectrum, that angry spectrum versus love spectrum, was love. So I wanted to learn the languages of love. And by doing that, by giving away all day to everyone, that really enacted that change and that focus on the good parts of people rather than the weaknesses or the faults of another person.
How has this changed your life and your relationship to your family of origin? Do they still respond the same way, or do they respond accordingly to your love language that you're practicing?
I think that it's really changed quite a bit, Zorina, and I thank you for that question because it's really something transformative for them as well. You know, we tend to put people in boxes, like this is what they like, and this is who they are, or this is how they're like. And instead of Dr. Chapman also put people in boxes, he said, take this survey, find out what your love language is, and then share that love language. But I didn't want to go there because inadvertently, what that ends up being is that, well, I told you what my love language is, and you're not doing it. How come you're not loving me? And it's just that pity party that comes, and that whiny voice that comes up. You don't really want to go there. It's really not productive to go there. So as I'm practicing with my children and the grandchildren, it's just the relationships it's almost like the anger's melting away. And you can imagine that what I found and what I discovered is that now if I'm stacking kindness on top of kindness, on top of kindness, on top of kindness, practicing these basic love languages, you get to the higher laws of love. You get to that intimacy, you get to the compassion, you get to the charity, you get to the forgiveness and empathy or sympathy, mercy. You get to all these higher laws of love by using these basic laws of love. So the purpose right now is to people get back to basics, get back to the common decency that is not so common anymore. There's a lot of rage out there right now. And let's get back to that common decency, at least learn the basics so we can get to those higher laws. Can you imagine someone insulting, and then asking for forgiveness? What's the chance of that even happening? So that's the whole idea. Just start stacking the kindness on top of kindness, and you get to those higher laws of love. That's what's happened with my family and friends too as well.
Have you experienced that despite you practicing the language of love, you've had a lashback or somebody not responding accordingly? Have you had a dissonance between the expected response and what actually happened?
That's a great question, Zorina. And I thought that I would have a lot of backlash like that, but out of the 170 podcasts that I've done in the last 6 months and being guest on that many podcasts, I've had one person that was just either not interested or just was kind of angry that I was doing what I'm doing right now. Just one person, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So not much, and which is kind of surprising. I thought, excuse me, I thought there'd be more backlash like that, but there's not. So people are interested in having a more peaceful life. This really takes a lot of angst out of life, takes a lot of anxiousness out of life. That no longer, excuse me, no longer are you looking for people or bidding people to love you. It's no longer about you or me. It's about them. And when you realize that's your lane, that the only thing that you have control over is sending love out and responding when it comes back your way. You can't tell people to love you. How's that going to turn out? I mean, how would that relationship turn out? People will feel like they're forced or they're compelled to love you. It's not going to turn out well. Just do it voluntarily, send it out, and we're sending this out without any regard of whatever's coming back. We don't have expectations when we're sending this out. And the reason we don't is because we trust the laws of the universe, the laws of the harvest, the law of karma, law of attraction, law of reciprocity. Any of those laws are already set in place before we ever were born on the earth, or they were here before we got here. So just trust that those laws are going to bring it back, or trust that somebody's going to light up for what you're doing that particular day. There's going to be somebody that likes that love language that you're sending out. Make their day and just be happy and satisfied that you're making someone's day. That's the whole idea.
Mm. What if somebody says, well, that's too much effort? What do you respond to that? I mean, for example, let's take the example of surprises. If you have to surprise somebody all the time, doesn't that take too much?
Well, that's the whole
attention?
idea. Yeah, and that's a great question. That's the whole idea, is that rolling the dice, you're actually having that variety. No longer, Zorina, do you have to be in that box and eat tacos every day of your life. You're not going to get that same kind of love every single day. This spices it up. It gives a little variety to that love life, especially to significant other people. It makes it fun. My wife doesn't roll the dice at all, but She watches for what I roll, and she tries to guess what I'm rolling or what I'm practicing that particular day. And it really is kind of a fun interchange that we have. And it just is a bonding link for our relationship. You can imagine people that roll physical touch, and they're over a day or two, they're developed this complicated handshake that maybe has 20 steps to a complicated handshake. Everybody that I know looks on a handshake like that with envy, saying, "Oh, I wish I was that person and had that intimacy, so to speak, with that person, that I could have that 50 or 20 step handshake and then just have that happiness that comes after completing it successfully." Just a fun thing.
Mm-hmm. What is in the Bible book, the exercise book? You have the book with the theory, and then you have an exercise book. Or what?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's for people that love to report at the end of the day. Journaling actually, Zorina, is a kind of a decompression activity. So if you're stressed at the end of a day, writing in a journal actually will decompress. Say, what did I do this day? You'll have the satisfaction of the opportunities that you saw to love in that way, what you did about those opportunities. It's really kind of self-directed. I'll just show it to you. I'm sure the audience that's listening probably can't see this, but it has a little place that you can check what you rolled, opportunities you saw to love in that way, what you did about those opportunities. It really is directed to be a love journal. When I looked at a journal page that's blank, my mind suddenly goes blank. So what the heck did I do today? And what good did I send out there today? And I just have a hard time writing in a blank journal. This kind of leads and directs you through it so that you can really record what you rolled, opportunities you saw to love in that way. What did you do about those opportunities? Because we can see opportunities all day long. If we're not doing anything, it's not helping anybody. It's not going to help us. It's not going to help them at all.
Mm-hmm. What transformations have you seen in people using your system, or have you observed anybody using
Absolutely. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, I've had families try it. I've had couples try it. Actually, working with a classroom right now. So in the classroom, what happens is that the teacher or a student will roll the dice at the beginning of the day, and the teacher might explain for 30 or 45 seconds, class, this is the type of behavior we're watching for today. And I'm testing this mostly in primary school right now, ages maybe ages 5 through 12, and it really is working well in that situation, because children that can't even read can understand the different icons. They can understand the pictures that are on the dice, and whatever the picture comes up and the teacher's explanation of that, they can understand that. So at the end of the day, I've given the teacher a PDF of that journal page so that they can print one out for each child to write on that journal page. So what happens now is that at the beginning of the day, they set the tone, or they set a theme for the day of how they're going to love all day long. At the end of the day, now those children have to report. I was 35 years old, Zorina, before I realized that I need to stop blaming my father for my actions, that I need to take responsibility for my own actions. Now, in this school system, we're teaching 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, up to 12-year-old children that they're responsible for their actions. And now they have to report at the end of the day what they did. So the teacher does a little check mark and says, yep, Johnny did that today. Now they can send the paper home. Or that astute teacher would say, this is a great story that I want to share the next day with the whole class. Look what Johnny did. Look what Mary did for how they loved yesterday. And it really would encourage other children to step up to the plate and be a better person and be more loving to their fellow classmates and in the classroom. And I think that if they can develop that base, learning all 5 love languages, that they're going to be able to get to those higher laws of love that we talked about, that they're going to have this basic foundation that would launch them to be a better person throughout their life. That's the whole idea of that. I've tested it with families as well. I tested with a family of 5 children, and the youngest was 4 years old. He's a boy, and one day he rolled physical touch, and he's jumping up and down and pumping his fist like this, and he said, "Yes, physical touch, physical touch," and immediately he goes and beats up on his brothers, and the mother's she's trying to suppress the laughter like that, and say, "No, son, this would be more appropriate physical touch." Well, that little boy probably did that because that's what he got from his brothers, from his older brothers. So it was perfect teaching moment for that mother to say, while the family is all together, while the children are all together, say, "No, son, this would be appropriate for the physical touch. You can do the high five, the fist bump, you can do the pat on the back above the waist, you can do the hug, you can do whatever, and that would be appropriate physical touch." But it became a teaching moment for those children, and it was a very appropriate teaching moment. You have to do it in the heat of that moment, and that was a perfect time to calmly show the child what would be correct physical touch.
Yeah. I have a practical question that really I am curious about, because in Europe, the schools have a very strict educational system. So nothing can be taught out of the pre-approved by the government learning system. So how does it work in the US? How did you introduce this system to this school?
That's a great question, Zorina. And the answer is right now, it's private schools only that I've been able to get it into. So private schools don't have that mandate, and it's very similar in the United States as Europe that way, that the school districts really clamp down on the types of programs they're putting in. But through a school district, if you get it approved through the school district, then it can be presented in the schools. But it's really, really difficult for a program like this to be approved at the school district level. There was mostly individual teachers that would take it into their classrooms, and the kindness is taught in the schools, but the success rate is very, very low. I mean, it's not happening, not on a regular basis, not for all the children. There may be a few that are attached to that type of program, but it's very far and few between. This is something that everybody can do. This is something that there's even people with disabilities, especially children with autism. They need to learn that type of touch. They need to learn that type of interaction and those social graces that autistic people normally don't have. This is a great help to get them to that point that they're socially not awkward anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's badly needed in schools nowadays, everywhere in the US, with this violence, not only in the US, in Europe as well. It's everywhere. Bullying, I constantly hear parents complaining about bullying of their children, like violence in schools is terrible.
Well, it transfers too. So, Zorina, it transfers from the school to their adult life, to their work life, and it transfers all the way. So if we can nip it in the bud at the school level, if we can do that at the school level, eventually we'll get to the point that these children actually know how to love, rather than how to hate. Everybody's being taught how to hate. They're all taught, well, what's wrong with that person? And they're all trying to cross that border. They need to set that boundary that that's not your job. You're not that person. You're not in charge of making choices for that person, and you're not their manager. Just let them make their choices and let them live the consequences or the benefits of living the way they live.
Have you taught the system to your children? Are they practicing it?
Some of them are. I had a son that one day he rolled gifts, and he said, "I don't like that one. I'm not going to do that," because he's had in his mind, and most people have in their mind, well, I've got to go out and buy something every single day. I don't want to be doing that all day long. So I try to teach him that a gift could be a hug for the touch. A gift could be a note for that. A gift could be just sit down and watch that movie. My wife loves Korean dramas, and she just loves for me to sit with her and watch these Korean dramas. They're pretty funny. I mean, they're very clean. Like until you get to the 9th or 10th episode, they haven't even kissed. and it's a romantic comedy. They're not even kissing yet, and so it's like set your clock back 50 years and watch this Korean comedy with me. A gift could be serving dinner to someone. That could be a nice gift. So don't be intimidated by gifts. He rolled that gifts that day, and they rolled it. Said he wasn't going to do it. He rolled it again. It was gifts again. Rolled it the third time. It was gifts again. The fourth time, he said, "Oh, finally, I'll do the gifts." It was not changing at all. It was kind of destined to do gifts that day, and so he said he'd do it anyway. So they are trying.
Awesome. Paul, where can people get a hold of your book or get in touch with you? Are you consulting also?
Yes, I'm doing private coaching right now, and they can get a hold of me mostly through the phone from Europe. They can get the WhatsApp through the WhatsApp system. We can do that consultation, but mostly can get a hold of me through my website, and that's rolloflove.com. I did a play on words, Zorina. ROLL is something that you do outside with the dice, outside of you. ROLE is the change that happens within. So that play on words is we're changing within. We're learning how to love, even improving our loving skills is what we're doing. And so it's ROLE of love.com. And they can find the dice, the book, and the journal on my website. In Europe, they can also find this on Amazon. But you don't want to type in roll of love. If you type in love this, love, love, you're going to get love this, love that, love everything.
Mm-hmm.
Type in my name. It'll take you right to the book and the journal. I also have it in Kindle format and in Audible format. So people listening to this podcast, if they like listening to podcasts while they're driving somewhere, or if they like listening to books as they're driving or commuting somewhere, this would be perfect for those people that are auditory in that way.
Mm-hmm. What was your dice that you rolled for today?
I rolled gifts today.
Wonderful, fantastic. So that's why to talk about gifts at the end. Lovely. It could be anything.
It can be anything. And right now I'm gifting you my time. You're gifting me your time, and it's it's a happy time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was very insightful. Good luck with bringing this practice to more schools and more people. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be with you today.
Likewise.